Today, I'm going to be talking about serial killers. Now, I'm sure you're all familiar with the term serial killer. It conjures up images of some of the most notorious criminals in history, like Ted Bundy, the Zodiac Killer, and Jack the Ripper. Well, have you ever wondered what makes a serial killer, besides the obvious definition? You might be thinking, what do all serial killers have in common? I'm here to answer that question. And no, it's not their love for sharp objects and dark alleys. Although that certainly doesn't help their case. The real truth goes much deeper than that. So without further ado, let's dive straight into the minds of serial killers. Number 1. All serial killers have a twisted sense of pleasure and enjoyment in committing heinous crimes. They take pleasure in the suffering of their victims and often go to great lengths to satisfy their twisted desires. For instance, Jack the Ripper, who terrorized the streets of London in the late 1800s, was known to mutilate and disfigure his victims in horrific ways. He's believed to have murdered at least 5 women. In his letters to the police, he would often talk about his love for the torture he performed on his victims. Another notorious serial killer, Ted Bundy, also exhibited this twisted pleasure in his crimes. He admitted to killing at least 30 women in the late 1970s and often confessed to feeling a sense of power and control over his victims. In one interview, he stated, "You learn what you need to kill and take care of the details. It's like changing a tire. The first time you're careful. By the 13th time, you can't remember where you left the lug wrench." This shows that Bundy killed so much that he eventually lost the original sense of pleasure and enjoyment from his first murders. Number 2. All serial killers tend to have an inflated ego. You might be thinking that it's only in the movies when villains give their whole monologue speech thing, but there have been plenty of cases when killers just can't help but brag about their KD ratio, whether it's bragging to their victims, their loved ones, or even the authorities. A serial killer known as the Zodiac Killer sent taunting letters to local newspapers, bragging about the murders he had committed and challenging authorities to catch him. He would strive for attention and enjoyed playing games with the police, but they weren't your standard family board games. He would toy with lives. He would brag to the police about what he had done in encoded messages, in hopes of angering them further. The more people he killed, the more he felt a sense of power. Another prime example is John Wayne Gacy, the murderer of at least 33 young men and boys in the 1970s. Gacy was a successful businessman and a pillar of his community, which only added to his arrogance and sense of entitlement. He once said, "All the police are going to get from me is running a funeral party without a license." This statement shows how Gacy believed himself to not have broken any laws, and his arrogance that he would never get caught. Number 3. Serial killers often tend to have a distorted view of reality, and may even believe that they're doing something reasonable or justified in their killings. They may believe that their victims deserve to die, or that they're carrying out some sort of higher purpose. Jack the Ripper, for example, claimed that in one of his letters he was destroying the evil and cleansing the streets of London. Ted Bundy also had a similarly distorted view of reality, and often justified his killings as a way to cleanse the world. "I want to master life and death," he said. Bundy would unjustly decide that he was the one that could determine if someone deserved to die. In another interview, he stated, "When you feel the last bit of breath leaving their body, you're looking into their eyes. A person in that situation is God." Well, there you have it. My list of the 3 things that all serial killers gotta have in common. Now you're a little more informed about what these psychos did in their life, and what characteristics they share. Now you can properly determine if you yourself might be a serial killer. So tell me, did you relate to any one of these? Do you ever have the irresistible urge to lure someone into a dark alley and stab them? If so, then don't do it, because being a serial killer is bad. Goodbye.